record this session. بچه این داره ضبط میشه، نگران نباشید، شما نیاز نیست ضبط کنید، ما بعدا این رو در اختیار میذاریم برای بچه‌ای که ثبت نام کردن. و به این صورت اوکی. So, Gunther, around 180 people registered for this event.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's a good first step. Now the question is, how many will show up?
Yeah. It's the second question. Usually, we see 25% of the registrants. Usually they show up.
Yeah,
But after that, we will send the recording of this session to those people to get familiar with you.
yeah. That is
Okay.
at least in line with my experience. That
Oh,
if you have like 25% of people actually showing up, then that's already good. I don't know. I think if I look at such numbers, Mehdi, I
yeah.
find that incredibly low because it means that 75% of people just register, don't show up.
Yeah.
In terms of Scrum, I wonder about sort of commitment because I feel
Wow.
that if you sign up, for me, you take a sort of a commitment,
Yeah. It's a
and
good
then
starting point for our discussion, I guess. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and by not showing up, you don't live up to your own commitment. And I think it has a lot to do, I don't know what your experience is, with this sort of this online world. Since the corona, the pandemic,
Yeah.
everything went online. And it created, I think, for me, two major things. First of all, people seem to expect that everything is for free because it's online, it's the internet, and people then think it doesn't cost any money. That's one aspect. And the other thing is it's in a way we make it way too easy for people to just do whatever they think, click and then not show up. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating because I've got my own meetup group and are
Mhm.
really thinking about this a lot recently even. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think this is the nature of free events. Yeah, at least based on the lessons learned, it shows that this is the nature of this type of events. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I guess we can start, right? Because it is 11:30. So let's get started and people will join us slowly. First of all, thank you very much for joining us, Gunther, my friend. And I know that you have a lot of followers and fans in the Iran Agile community.
Okay.
So that's a great opportunity that you are here and we have you here to listen to your, things here, specifically about Scrum values. The structure that we will follow in this session is that I ask you some questions, but first I need to translate it to Persian because people want to understand it. And then whenever you answer my question after 2 or 3 sentences, that would be great if you pause and then I will translate it to Persian, and then we will continue. Is it okay?
And it's totally fine. But if I keep talking, don't mind interrupting me, Mehdi.
Okay,
It's okay.
okay, wonderful, wonderful. So let's get started. I want to explain these things in Persian. بچه خیلی خوش آمدید. ممنون از اینکه تایم گذاشتید و تشریف آوردید. بچه آروم آروم دارن جوین میشن. گفتیم هولوش 180 نفر به صلاح ثبت نام کردن برای این رویداد. ببینیم حالا چجوری میشه، چند نفر میان، ولی داره ضبط میشه رویداد. ما امروز میخوایم در مورد ارزش‌های اسکرام صحبت بکنیم با کسی که تو این حوزه پیشرو هست و ببینیم که از نگاه ایشون چه معنی میده این ارزش‌های اسکرام. فضا هم به این صورت خواهد بود که من چیز میکنم، سوال میپرسم و بعد ایشون که پاسخ دادن بعد از هر 2 تا 3 تا جمله من یه پاز میدم، ترجمه میکنم به فارسی و به همین ترتیب ادامه میدیم. 15 دقیقه آخر سشن رو در نظر گرفتیم که شما سوالات خودتون رو بپرسید که از زبان ایشون بتونیم پاسخ رو بگیریم. خب بذارید شروع بکنیم. Okay, Gunther, the last
Yes.
15 minutes will be for, participants' question. Uh,
Mhm.
so let's get started with my first question. Why do we need to have Scrum values in a Scrum?
Because for me, Scrum, we just create a frame within which people can do their work. We have basic rules, minimal rules in place, and in the end, it all boils down to helping people regularly inspect so that they can adapt, so that they can. It's all about adaptability in that sense. But the other aspect of Scrum is it's all about people, human beings. And those two combined means we set a frame, we create boundaries within which we want people to collaborate and interact. So that's why I like to say, and I put that even a long time ago in this little book of mine, it's called Scrum, a Pocket Guide. I said, actually, Scrum is more about behavior than it is about process.
Process.
Because
Yeah.
with the process, we just create a frame, but the real success of Scrum, the real benefits you will get from Scrum is not, will not come from the process, adherence to the process. It will come from people interacting, collaborating, communicating, working together. It's how people work within that frame, not from the frame itself. And
Sorry,
that,
Gunther,
that
shall I
go
pause you
ahead.
because that I lost you. Okay. So, بچه ها گفتن که اسکرام دو بخش داره. یکی این که خب خودش یه چارچوبه، یه فریم ورکه که به ما آزادی عمل میده که ما بتونیم اون پرکتیس های خودمون رو انتخاب بکنیم، کار بکنیم. بخش دومش اینه که بخش هیومن سایده، یعنی بخش انسانیشه و اون داره به ما میگه اسکرام بیش از اینکه یک پروسس باشه، بیهیویر رفتاره و ما باید این رفتاره رو نشون بدیم. اون چارچوبه داره این رو ایجاد میکنه و این رفتار در ارتباطمون، در همکاریمون، در نوع با هم بودنمون داره خودش رو نشون میده. ایشون این جمله این که اسکرام بیشتر یک بیهیویر تا یک پروسس رو تو کتاب خودشون به نام اسکرام پاکت گاید بهش اشاره کردن که چندین سال پیش ورژن اولش اومده بیرون. اوکی. Go ahead, Gunther.
Yeah, cool. So in a way, the success of Scrum will come more from the behavior of people, what people do within Scrum, than from the rules of Scrum. And behavior is driven by values. What we say, what we think, our initial responses, whatever our intuition, it's all based upon, let's say, values. Values, ideas that we have almost sort of hidden inside of us. Sometimes they may be unconscious of, we may be unconscious or it might be subconscious things. So values drive behavior. So that is why for me the Scrum values are so important
Mm,
because the success of Scrum will come from behavior and values drive behavior.
okay.
Now,
اه، yeah,
yeah,
let me translate it. اشاره میکنن که رفتارهای ما از ارزشهای ما میاد، ارزشهایی که به اصطلاح بهشون پایبند هستیم و اگر ما دنبال ارزشهای به اصطلاح سازنده هستیم در چارچوب اسکرام، ببخشید رفتارهای سازنده، لاجرم مجبوریم که ارزشهایی رو داشته باشیم و این ارزشها دیزاین شدن برای اون قضیه. بچه ببخشید من شاید کلمه به کلمه ترجمه نکنم، من نقل به مضمون میکنم که بهتر منتقل بشه و این ممکنه از خودم هم مطلبی رو اضافه بکنم که بهتر منتقل بشه مطلب. ولی اصل قضیه اینه، اگر رفتار سازنده به اصطلاح میخوایم، نیازمند داشتن ارزش هایی هستیم که پایبندی به اون ارزش ها منتج به خلق رفتارهای جدید میشه. چیزی که ما نیاز داریم برای مقابله کردن با نادانستگی یا کامپلکسیتی که در کار خودمون داریم. اوکی گونتر
yeah.
پلیز.
Okay, cool. So and that also brings me to let's go back in time a
Yeah.
little bit. And at first, speaking for myself, something that I've realized only after a number of years, but it seems in all of my career, and I graduated a long time ago as an industrial engineer in electronics in 1992. Imagine how
Oh.
old I am, Mehdi. So
Yeah.
and I went to work and I built up whatever I did and I changed jobs regularly. And after a number of years, I found out for myself what is it that drives me. And what I found for myself is people. It's all about people, working with people, getting the most out of people, creating environments where people feel respected and feel good and want to perform. So for me, it's always been all around people. And probably that's also why I was so attracted by Scrum and this agile way of working back in 2003. Now, what happened in 2012? So it's always been about people for me. And by the end of 2012, I was teaching a class. As you know, you too, Mehdi, we are
Yeah,
professional Scrum trainers, so PSTs for Scrum to Talk.
yeah,
And I was teaching a PSPO class. Yeah. And maybe I'll give you some time to translate this
yeah,
first and
yeah.
then I'll
That
continue.
would be
Yeah.
great. So, اشاره کردن که ایشون از سالیان گذشته کارشون شروع کردن 1992 فارغ التحصیل شدن، بعد 2003 با فضای اجایل و اینها آشنا شدن، شروع کردن به کار کردن. ولی توی همه این زمانها اون نقطه اصلی که ایشون میدیدن کار با انسان ها بود، کار با آدم ها بوده و این مرکز توجه ایشون بوده. این قضیه ادامه داشت، چون من میدونم قبلا ما با هم دیگه صحبت کردیم، اون زمان ایشون آشنا شده با تفکر آقای کنشوبر، سال 2003 رو دارم میگم، و بعد ایشون ادامه دادن تا اینکه ابتدای دهه 2010 ایشون مدرس رسمی اسکرام دات اورگ شدن، تا اینکه 2012 الان داشتن میگفتن که دارن یه دوره پی اس پی و پروداکت اونری رو داشتن آموزش میدادن. حالا ببینیم قدم بعدیش چیه. اوکی گونتر گو اهد.
Yeah, so by the end of 2012, so I started with Scrum back in 2003. So by then I had been doing Scrum for, let's say, almost 10 years. I had been working for 2 years full time in the Netherlands. I'm from Belgium. I live in Antwerp in Belgium. But by then, 2011, 2012, I'd been working in the Netherlands. I was sort of in the middle, sort of at the heart of an enormous Scrum storm that was sweeping over the Netherlands, working with large organizations.
اوکی.
And I was doing this product owner class, and it had a mix of students, meaning it had sort of regular students, but also a number of people that wanted to become a trainer themselves.
آه.
And one of those candidate trainers, as a guy from the UK, asked me during the class about the Scrum values. And he wanted to know, Gunther, do you feel the Scrum values are still relevant? And I felt like for me, they are. But you're right. What about the Scrum values? Because you don't read about them, you don't hear about them. They seem to have totally disappeared. So,
آه.
so if I would look back at time again, so that's what I did after that class, looking into the Scrum values. I couldn't find any traces of it, except the first time ever they were described. It was in the first Scrum book ever that was published in 2002.
با
So we're
کنشوبر.
now end of
Yeah.
2012. Book published in 2002 for 10 years in a row. Everybody is so focused on Scrum, the process and the roles and the duties
Mm.
and the instructions and so on. And nobody even talking or referring to the Scrum values. So I get in
اوکی.
touch with Ken Schwaber. Yeah, go ahead.
ساری. داشتم میگفتن که تو سال 2012 یه دوره پی اس پی او داشتن برگزار میکردن و آدمای زیادی بودن. بعضی از بچهای توی کلاس هم میخواستن مدرس بشن. یکیشون از یوکی پرسید که آیا هنوز ارزش های اسکرام مرتبط هست، معنی داره یا خیر؟ و ایشون گفتن بله، چرا که نه. ولی هیچ سندی نداشتن، هیچ داکیومنتی نداشتن که بگیم قابل ریفر باشه. دفعه اولی هم که مطرح شد تو سال 2002 تو یکی از کتابای آقای کنشابر اینو مطرح شد. اتفاقا من الان میخوام اینم بپرسم دقیقا که ببینم که چی شد اون مقطع این مطرح شد و بعد چی شد که وارد اسکرام گاید شد. چون آقای گونتر یکی از کسانی بودن که پیگیری کردن تا سال 2016 ارزش های اسکرام وارد اسکرام گاید شده. حالا از زبونشون میشنویم. اوکی گوتر go ahead please.
Yeah, cool. So I got in touch with Ken Schwaber by then. And so by the end of 2012, asked him, Ken, Scrum values, do they actually still exist? Do you still believe in them? How do you feel about them? And he said, he had sort of the same response as I had. That's right, they sort of disappeared. But he said, I also, together with you, Gunther, I believe that they are important. So I went to look up in that book. It's called Agile Software Development with Scrum, 2002, written by Ken Schwaber and Mike Beadle. And they described the Scrum values sort of in a sort of addendum almost to the book, sort of an attachment within the book itself, but at the end of the book. And Book was written in 2002. So imagine the early days of Scrum, early practitioners, early teams still doing Scrum. And what had Mike and Ken described? They described the Scrum values almost like characteristics, traits, characteristics of that people showed, demonstrated, displayed by doing Scrum. Huh?
Uh-huh.
And what had Ken and Mike seen? They said, you know what? Wow, cool. What we see, those teams that are doing Scrum and doing, let's say, properly, they seem to exhibit a number of characteristics, and they call that the Scrum values. That meant um, that they saw those teams and people doing Scrum, that they showed commitment. They were dedicated, they were engaged, they were energized, they were inspired, they really believed in what they were doing. They were really committed to this way of working. And that commitment also led to focus, meaning they had a focus, had a clear idea, what are we doing, what are we not doing? And Ken and Mike found, established that people were more open. They showed more openness. Openness to working with each other, open to unforeseen things, unpredictability, changes, changing needs, and so on. And they showed much more respect. And Ken and Mike felt that those people were really courageous in those times, doing Scrum properly, showing that openness, respect, choosing what to do, what not to do. That all required a lot of courage. So that was 2002. That was how they described the Scrum values.
اوکی. گفتن که اون زمان با آقای کنشوور تماس گرفتن. برای اطلاعتون که آقای کنشوور یکی از دو نفر به اصطلاح مبدعان چارچوب اسکرام هستن که آقا فرض چجوریه برنامه هنوز اون آیا مرتبط هست معنی داره که ایشون گفتن بله هست و توی یک کتاب به نام اجایل سافر دیولپمنت توی 2002 به این 5 تا ارزش اشاره کردن با یکی دیگه از به اصطلاح اشخاص دیگه توی این فضا. بعدش خب ایشون ادامه دادن این قضیه رو پیگیری کردن که اصلا چجوری تو اون کتاب این مطرح شده در مورد اون ارزش فرض کامیتمنت چی هست نمیدونم فوکس چی هست اوپننس چی هست که حالا من اینا رو خیلی نمیخوام باز بکنم الان بهتر بریم داخلشون و اونجا بیشتر در موردشون صحبت بکنیم بیشتر الان دارن تاریخچه رو میگن میخوام ببینیم به کجا رسیده که در نهایت وارد اسکرام گاید شده. Okay, Gunther, you go ahead
Yeah.
because probably we will be waiting for the time that those Scrum values, added to the Scrum guide.
Yeah. So
Yeah, go ahead.
what happened in 2012? We need to look into the Scrum values. And what I liked about the Scrum values is that you can, in a way, the term values is sort of not too important in a way, because what is most important about the Scrum values, those 5 things, commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage, that you can translate them into behavior.
Yeah.
In that sense, I felt like we've moved on for 10 years now, since 2002. Um, Ken and Mike had described the Scrum values as a result and outcome of doing Scrum. And I felt like let's use it in 2 ways. Let's try to envision that outcome. Let's try to aim at those Scrum values rising, surfacing, emerging from doing Scrum. So values drive behavior. But again, behavior in the context of Scrum means behavior in acknowledging empiricism as an important tool to tackle complexity, uncertainty, and unpredictability. That means if you would translate the Scrum values into behavior, you have to do it within the context of Scrum of complexity, unpredictability, and so on. And that is how I try to describe them. So I described them in 2013, first 2013 on my blog. It's a blog note. By the way, it's the most read blog note on my blog ever. I will
Oh,
never
really?
write something. Yes, really. So that already shows that there's an interest in people in this. Then
And
I
what
added
was
into
the title of that blog post? The International Scrum Values. You mean that one?
no. It's the initial blog note on my book. It's called "There's Value in the Scrum Values." So
Oh,
that's
yeah, I
the
remember. I
title. That's
remember.
That's
Yeah.
from 2013. I added them then to the first edition of my book. I've kept added them to all later editions too, by the way. That was published in 2013, and it was only in 2016 that they were also added to the Scrum Guide. So they had
Mm.
never been described anywhere in for 10 years. I put them back on the radar. I added them to my book, and then still it took 3 years to add them to the Scrum Guide, and in a very short way, very condensed. Um, I'm not too much of a fan of how it's been added to the Scrum Guide, but I believe in the value of the Scrum values because it's something you can use at every retrospective as a Scrum Master, helping people look back at the sprint and think about behavior. How did we interact with each other? And how does that match with the Scrum values? What does that say with regards to our commitment? Yeah? And our focus and openness, respect, and all the Scrum values. But for me, there is no clear sequence in the five Scrum values. But for me, anything starts with commitment. Without
Wow.
commitment, nothing stands a chance. It doesn't matter. Process, other values, structures, procedures, governance, I don't care. If people are not really committed, and committed means for me, Mehdi, engaged, dedicated. If people are not committed, you can force whatever you want upon them. It will always have at least limited results.
Okay. Gunther, sorry, I need to pause you. Your sentences are really sweet, so I didn't want to cut you off. Okay, but
Mhm.
let me translate it. Hopefully, I haven't forgotten them. گفتن که اون زمان خب صحبت کردم با آقای کنشوور اینها، اونها از درون انگار میدیدن، ولی آقای گونتر ونی میگه ما از یه بعد دیگه میتونیم بهش نگاه بکنیم. اینکه بستری رو فراهم بکنه، یعنی اون چی میگن آوتکام رفتارهای ما باشه. امیدوارم واقعا درست ترجمه کرده باشم. یعنی اون رفتارها ابتدا باید بیاد که ما بتونیم خروجی های خوب و انتظاری رو داشته باشیم، نه برعکس. میگید چی میگن؟ خلاصه این قضیه رو اینجوری پیگیری کردن تا اینکه خلاصه تو سال 2016 تونستن اضافه بکنن. ایشون دفعه اول که در مورد این قضیه به صورت مبسوط صحبت کردن، اشاره کردن توی یه بلاگ پستی بوده که 2013 منتشر کردن که اصلا عنوانش هم همین بوده، ارزشی که در ارزش‌های اسکرام وجود داره. که من اینو قبلا خونده بودم، اصلا عنوان این رویدادم من از اونجا به ذهنم اومد که گذاشتم روی عنوان این رویداد. و اونجا اشاره کردن که چی هست و چی نیست، بازش کردن. بعد خلاصه تونستن اینو توی اسکرام گاید 2016 بذارن که حالا میگه من خیلی دوست نداشتم اون رویه که اونا گذاشتن، چون خیلی کوتاه و شورت بوده. هنوزم که میبینید واقعا کوتاه، نصف صفحه آچار رو تخصیص دادن بهش. و در نهایت میگه که از بین همه اینها اون نقطه اصلی ارزش های اسکرام تو کامیتمنته. بدون کامیتمنت انگار بقیه چیزا انگار بی‌معنیه. خب پس اینقدر اهمیت داره این قضیه که ابتدای جلسه امروز هم اشاره کردن که آقا چطور میشه 180 نفر ثبت نام بکنن ولی فقط 25% بیان. یعنی ما هنوز واقعا اونقدر اون کامیتمنت واقعی رو زندگی نمیکنیم. اوکی گونتر پلیز.
Yeah, okay, you're welcome. So for me, the Scrum values should be the result of Scrum still, but you can also most use them also as input into Scrum to help people transcend just looking at Scrum as a new process to follow.
Yes.
It's all about behavior. So within the process, show that behavior. And what is for me so important, so I just said it starts with commitment, um, because commitment is dedication, it's engagement. It's in my description, I added this sort of poor interpretation of commitment where people expect if management leadership expects a team to commit, they almost limit it to only expecting the team to deliver what they promised, let's say what they would deliver, which sort of contradicts the complexity and the unpredictability of our work. So commitment, in a sense, in a context of Scrum, has nothing to do with predictable results, but with
Mm.
dedication of people. That means
About our
if
way
I
of
would
being,
translate,
right? About our way
yeah,
of being.
yeah.
Okay.
So I often wonder what is the highest form of commitment of a Scrum team? A Scrum team that is pushing itself and working overtime, nights, weekends, whatever, undermining quality and so on, just to deliver what they thought they would deliver by the beginning of sprint, so deliver that by the end of sprint. That is what management expects them to be. That is sort of the commitment that management expects them to be. For me, the higher form of commitment is a team dedicated, doing all they can, working hard, but within the limits of sustainable pace, not undermining quality, keeping quality high, but delivering less scope, and then being totally honest and open about what happened, what influenced that, showing that complete insights, giving visibility into what they did. That is for me a much higher form of commitment. Working hard, doing the best you can, and then if it works out, not works out, sharing that, learning, inspecting, and adapting. That is commitment for me.
Really loved it. Really loved. Okay, let me translate it. صحبت کردن در مورد بحث تعهد و کامیتمنت. میگه از دید منیجرها نگاه بکنید، انگار چیزی که اونها انتظار دارن اینه که شما همه وقتتون رو بذارید، نمیدونم چی میگن، تمام وقت کار بکنید، وقت اضافه کار بکنید تا اون چیزی رو که تعیین کردید، مثلا طی اسپرینت حتما انتهای اسپرینت تحویل بدید و تمام بشه. ولی میگه من تعریف دیگه ای از کامیتمنت و تعهد دارم و اون اینه که ما بست خودمون رو بذاریم، بهترین خودمون هرچه در چنده داریم بذاریم، ولی در چارچوب و باندری سستینبل پیس. یعنی قرار نیست شما خودتون رو بکشید بگید خب چون قرار من کامیتمنت داشته باشم پس هر شب باید تا 10 شب توی اداره باشم. نه، این معنیش کامیتمنت نیست. خب ولی اون زمانی که داری کار میکنی باید بست خودتو بذاری و بعد در نهایت باز باشی. اگر به مانعی برخوردی، به مشکلی برخوردی، اون رو شیر بکنی با دیگران که با همدیگه بتونید تصمیم گیری بکنید. و اینو خودم دارم اضافه میکنم داخل پرانتز. توی ورژن فکر میکنم 2011 اسکرام گاید بوده که کلمه کامیت، یعنی تیم کامیت میکنه چند تا پی بی آی رو تا انتهای اسپرینت تمام بکنه، عوض شد به فورکست. یعنی تیم پیش بینی میکنه که این پی بی آی های انتخاب شده رو تا آخر اسپرینت تمام بکنه. چرا؟ برای اینکه همیشه میزانی از نادانستگی وجود دارد. اما ما با کامیتمنتمون بست خودمون رو میذاریم وسط با این قصد و نیت که بخوایم تا انتهای اسپرینت واقعا به اون هدف اسپرینت برسیم. این است.
Yeah,
گونتر.
cool. So over the past few years, so it's been a long history in Scrum Values, putting them back on the radar. 2012 in my book, 2016 added to the Scrum Guide. So since the pandemic, I've been creating a couple of workshops based upon my book, Scrum Pocket Guide, things that complement what I already teach. As there are no classes around the Scrum Values, and even if Scrum Values are treated in existing classes, it's always very minimal, let's say. So I created a half-day workshop around the Scrum Values. And in that workshop, I work with people, we think them through, we relate them to behaviors, to the context of Scrum. And what always pops up is that people understand that actually commitment, a good synonym for that is actually dedication, or even better, maybe engagement. So
آه.
commitment is a sign of dedication. I like the term engagement because it's more, I feel it's more positive. It's more something coming out of people, engagement, where commitment is something that is imposed on people. So that
To
is
be all
one,
present, right? To be all
yeah,
present and show up fully.
yeah, act in the moment,
Mm.
be present indeed. And then what we always also found out in my class is there's a little bit of a clustering happening within those five Scrum values because commitment or engagement and focus are really closely related. It's
Mm.
almost as if focus is a result of commitment or engagement. Because if you're engaged, if you it means if you're dedicated to something, you're going to spend your time, your energy on that. That means you're creating focus for yourself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, fully
that is
agree. Fully agree.
the positive expression of focus, because the Agile Manifesto has this beautiful statement. I truly love that. It's sort of the backside, let's say, of focus, meaning maximizing the work not done.
Done. Yeah.
Because focus means this is what I will do, which is the same as deciding what you will not do. By maximizing what you will not do, you will also maximize what you will do. And that's already, that is commitment. So commitment and focus are almost like, I
Two
think, I don't
brothers,
know,
hand in
somewhere,
hand. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about a way somewhere in the future to make it. I like simplicity, as you know, Mehdi, to make it even simpler and to bring five things back to only three. But I will let you translate this first and then I'll
اوکی.
continue.
اوکی. هنوز در مورد تعهد داریم صحبت میکنیم که اشاره کردن موقعی که این پندمیک کرونا و اینا شروع شد یه مثل یک دوره نصف روزه رو دیزاین کردن در مورد ارزش‌های اسکرام و اومدن در موردش صحبت کردن و در نهایت انگار به این رسیدن که اگر بخوان مثلا تعهد رو همگام بکنن با کلمات دیگه میشه ددیکیشن. حالا ددیکیشن یعنی اینکه خودمون رو وقف کامل اون کار بکنیم. انگیجمنت یعنی کامل درگیر اون کار بشیم و به این سمت رفتن که انگار اه، تمرکز و تعهد چیز هستن، همزاد همدیگه هستن. شما وقتی تعهد داری میتونی تمرکز بکنی روی یک چیز خاص تا اون رو به نتیجه برسونی و این وصل میشه به یکی از اصول 12گانه اجایل که میگه simplicity is the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. که وقتی روی یه چیزی تمرکز میکنی یعنی به چیزهای دیگه گفتی نه. خب و این داره مکسیمایز میکنه به چیزای دیگه که گفتی نه، در عین حال مکسیمایز میکنه چیزی رو که میخوایی انجام بدی، یعنی بستش میکنه چون با تعهد داری و تمرکز داری انجامش میدی. خیلی خوب. اوکی گونتر go ahead please.
So, and another reason why I say anything starts with commitment, to use that term, because commitment is engagement and it's closely related to focus, um, is because the levels of engagement in our world, in the industry, and in organizations and enterprises is incredibly low. So
Mm.
again, reinforcing the idea, the importance of the Scrum value, thinking about engagement. What are you dedicated to? What makes you thrive? What do you like to do? And at least in a number of my Scrum implementations, I've seen engagement of people really increase, really rise. And it's closely related to the self-organization of Scrum. You know, you have got the process aspect of Scrum and the people aspect of Scrum. The people aspect of Scrum has a lot to do with self-organization, meaning allow people, ask people, invite people, provoke people to organize their own work within the boundaries of Scrum without telling them exactly how to do that and so on. So that sense of engagement should increase with the ability to organize your own work live. And I've seen that happening with teams. But if just Scrum as a process is imposed on people, that really happens because people just execute what they are told to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
commitment, engagement really important, and overall engagement in organizations really low. That's why with Scrum there's so much we can do to create a healthier workplace, or what I like to call in humanizing the workplace. So that's another way to, for me, to look at the importance of the Scrum values.
Yeah.
Humanizing
But
the
Gunther,
workplace,
you know
increasing
that,
engagement.
sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
You know that many teams and people are interested in, following the elements of a Scrum, the tangible elements, for example, events, artifacts, and these things.
Yeah.
So how can we engage them or motivate them to put more energy on these invisible parts, I can say, for example,
Yeah.
Scrum values?
Yeah, cool. That's a very important point. So one thing I also did in my book, it's called Scrum a Pocket Guide. I created what I call the Scrum Game Board, and because
Sorry?
I wanted to create the Scrum Game Board
On a
in
game
my
board, okay?
yeah in my book. I don't know. I could see I can quickly find it. But the idea was the following. Everybody knows. Let's say so. This is my Scrum Game Board. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, and everybody knows the official elements of Scrum, right? The instructions, meaning what roles you should set up, what meetings, events you should organize, and what artifacts you should manage and maintain. And in my game board, I wanted to add a fourth axis. So you've got accountabilities, you've got the artifacts and the events. I've added three aspects to that. And two are the what I call the main management principles underlying Scrum, meaning empiricism and self-organization. plus the Scrum values. So we have to make that more visible because it's not highlighted enough, it's not emphasized enough in the Scrum guide. That is also not possible, by the way. So it's not just blaming that, but as Scrum Masters, as coaches, as helpers, facilitators, we have to bring out the message to people. Scrum is more than just that process. Scrum is about inspection, adaptation. It's about creating an environment where people can self-organize, where people show the right behavior driven by those values. And as a Scrum Master or a coach, whatever, you can even do that every retrospective. Use the
Mhm.
sprint retrospective, looking back at the sprint, inviting people to look back at the sprint in terms of the Scrum values and the behavior that are um, almost like hidden in the Scrum values. How was this sprint in terms of commitment? How was our commitment? How was it with our focus, our dedication? What did we say no to? Did we say yes against to things that we know we should have said no to? What about the openness in the team? Are we engaging with each other? Are we entering constructive conflict? Are we raising ideas? Are we not hiding all the time? Are we speaking up, which are signs of openness or not openness? Are we respectful to each other? Are we respectful to change? How courageous have we been? So, as a Scrum Master or a coach, whatever, you can use the Scrum values almost as a tool or an angle or perspective to look back at the sprint, to almost pull people away from their eyes on the process and
Okay.
to behavior.
So let me translate it. اشاره کردن از بحث چیز، البته پرسیدم ازشون که خب بیشتر تیم ها و آدم ها انگار دوست دارن به سمت اون المنت های مشهود اسکرام برن، مثلا چه میدونم ایونت های اسکرام، رول ها، نمیدونم آرتیفکت ها، اینها. ولی این بخش ها مثل امپریسیزم، مثل اسکرام ولیوز، اینا بخش های اینویزیبل و غیر قابل دیدن کار هستن. اینو بذار چی کار بکنیم که کتابشون رو باز کردن، گفتن یه تکنیکی هست به نام اسکرام گیم، یه همچین چیزی. و اونجا درسته که ما اون المنت های مشهود اسکرام رو داریم، ولی باید المنت های نامشهود اسکرام رو هم بیاریم روی به اصطلاح صفحه که تحت دید دیگران قرار بگیره، که اشاره کردن به ارزش‌های اسکرام، ایمپریسیزم و سلف اورگانایزیشن، و این رو پروموت بکنیم. به طور خاص در مورد ریتروسپکتیو صحبت کردن که چک بکنیم اینها رو. آقا آیا واقعا ما ددیکیشن کامل رو توی اسپرینتی که گذشته نشون دادیم؟ به چیا نگفتیم؟ خب یعنی جرأت به خرج دادیم، کورج، که بگیم نه. آیا مثلا چه میدونم بست خودمون رو نشون دادیم؟ آیا اوپن بودیم؟ آیا فوکس لازم رو داشتیم؟ یعنی این رو دائما ما بیایم ارزیابی بکنیم که ببینیم تو چه سطحی ما به ارزش های اسکرام پایبند بودیم. این از این. بذارید من تایمم یه چک بکنم و یه 10 دقیقه دیگه میتونیم بریم، بعد سوالات بچه ها رو بپرسیم. Okay, Gunther, we need to manage time. I want to
Yeah,
ask you a few more questions because we have just 10 minutes between you and me, and then we will go for the questions from participants. One of the questions that I always wanted to ask you is this one. Why do we have just those five values? Why is it not, for example, six values or seven values? For example, one of the
yeah.
values that I really wanted to have in those lists is, you know, humility or humbleness. So why we don't have these things?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of additional values you can think about. And I like humility too, by the way. Even this week, somebody asked me, why is trust not one of the Scrum values? And it's not because it's not important in Scrum, but I think just Mike and Ken, long time ago, saw those things as most prevalent and most
To the point?
in their eyes. Yeah, they're sort of the most important ones. It doesn't mean the other ones are not important. What I like about the five Scrum values is that they translate into behavior. Things like humility, trust are maybe part of the existing values and maybe more difficult to translate into behavior. That doesn't mean they are not important, because yeah, you have to make it choice, I presume, at some point of time. I would like even to bring those five even back to just three, actually, because we've got this
Oh.
cluster of commitment and focus. Openness and respect also is a cluster. And then you've got courage. And there's a lot of there are many other values, like you say, humility, but also trust, that you can picture as part of the existing values. So for me, that selection of values, five in my view, even maybe only three, it doesn't rule out the other ones. You can picture, you can describe those values as part of the existing Scrum values. But in that sense, it raises a very important issue, Mehdi. In that sense, also the five Scrum values, in a way, they are just words. Commitment, focus.
Mm.
You have to give meaning to them. So Scrum Masters and teams for themselves, you have to give meaning to them. So in that sense, if one of the values that you talked about, humility, or somebody asked me about this week, trust, it's they don't have to be explicitly a Scrum value, because in that sense it still wouldn't solve the problem. Because even if you would add them, they would still be words. You would still have to explain them. You have to give meaning to them, and that means giving meaning to them in a context of Scrum with unpredictability, change, changing environments, complexity, unforeseen events, and so on, and self-organization. So even um, if they would be added to if we would expand the list of Scrum values, that still doesn't solve the problem that you have to be able to explain them.
So let me translate it. دوستان ازشون پرسیدم که چرا ارزش‌های اسکرام فقط 5 تا دونه است، چرا بیشتر نیست، در صورتی که ما چیزای دیگر هم می‌بینیم. مثلا از دید خودم گفتم که چرا فروتنی توش نیست. خب که اشاره کردن اون زمان که آقای کنشویبر اینا میخواستن این رو به اصطلاح خلقش بکنن، این لیست رو، گفتن اینا مهمترین ها بودن که تصمیم گیری کردن اینا رو داشته باشن. ولی این معنیش این نیست که ما ارزش های دیگر رو نمیتونیم داشته باشیم. به علاوه اینکه اینها خیلی در هم تنیده هستن. حتی خود آقای گونتر میگن که اگه من بودم اینو تبدیلش میکردم به 3 تا. چرا؟ برای اینکه بعضی از اینا واقعا به هم دیگه مرتبطن. مثلا کامیتمنت و فوکس رو یه دونش میکردم، رسپکت و اوپننس رو یه دونه، و کورج رو یه دونه دیگه مثلا انجام میدادم به این صورت. و اینکه در نهایت اینها یه سری کلمه هستند. اگر ما میخوایم استفاده درست از اینها بکنیم، باید به اینها معنی بدهیم. یعنی دائما باید در موردشون حرف بزنیم، در مورد پروموتشون بکنیم توی به اصطلاح تیممون. و این تکرار هست که این میره توی ذهن ناخودآگاه ما میشینه تا تبدیل به اون رفتار سازنده انتظاری بشه. بنابراین اگر صرفا در حد یک سری کلمه نگه داریم اینها رو، مسئله حل نمیکنه، بلکه این خواستن ماست که تو چه سطحی میتونیم معنی وارد اونها بکنیم، که در نهایت نمودش میشه رفتارهای روزانه‌ای که افراد تیم اسکرام در محل کارشون نشون میدن. اوکی. گونتر go ahead please.
Yeah, go ahead. But I sort of think, I was just thinking, if you're okay, Mehdi, I just want to, as a sort of before we go into the questions
Yeah.
part, just can I try to share my screen?
Yeah, no, yeah, I need to
Yeah,
give you permission just a
but I
moment.
have to
Here
give
you
me
go.
permission. Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, okay, okay, cool, thank you. Because I just talked about this Scrum game board. So this
Mm-hmm.
is from my book. And for me, this is important because this is for me a complete picture of Scrum, meaning not just the formal elements of Scrum. So at the heart of Scrum is producing value via the increment that we produce. We're producing valuable increments. Um, to the top, you see the three accountabilities or the roles of Scrum, meaning Scrum Master, Product Owner, and I still like to say the team of developers, not just developers. And I still like to think in terms of development team.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the right-hand side, you've got the activities, and I've written sprint planning with a non-capitalized planning. So I'm not referring to the event, I'm referring to the activity of planning a
Oh.
sprint. And then a
Uh-huh.
daily scrum. And by the end of the sprint, you reflect. In Scrum, we've got two official events for that, but it's all about reflection. So, and to the left-hand side, You've got the two plans, let's say, that we have in Scrum, the plan for the product backlog, and then the plan for the sprint backlog. And then um, let's say the management technique to manage those things, which I like to call visual management. So you manage them visually. If you produce burned out charts, if you use a Scrum board, whatever, you make a visual the state and the progress on those artifacts. But those are still the formal elements of Scrum. And then you can see to the bottom, I've added the two main principles underlying Scrum. I call them management principles, meaning self-organization. People that are capable and creative and intelligent enough to manage their own work and organize their own work within a sprint and across sprints by applying empiricism and supported almost, let's say, by the Scrum values. So for me, Mehdi, this is the complete picture of Scrum, where the Scrum Guide mostly focuses on the formal elements of Scrum, the formal instructions,
Mm,
which are the three top axes, let's say.
really loved it. When did you create it? I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's in my book. It's been in my book since 2013.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it's just in my
Probably
I had
I
to put it in.
saw it, but I cannot remember it because I read
Yeah.
your book. Okay, let me translate it. بچه این شمایی که نشون دادن الان آقای گونتر نظرش اینه که این تصویر اصلی و واقعی اسکرام هست. اگر دیده باشی من خیلی دوست داشتم اون چیز اون لاین بیرونی در اصل داره اون زیر ساخت های فکری ما رو داره نشون میده، مثلا اسکرام ولیوز، ویژوال منیجمنت، اسپرینت ریفلکشن و اینها خیلی به نظرم واقعا حساب شده بود. و هرچی میریم به درونتر انگار این المنت های مشهودتر و ملموستری میشن. حتی جالب این نگاه رو که اسپرینت پلنینگ رو با پی کوچیک نوشتن، پی کوچیک، و میگه نه اون ایونته بلکه یک پروسس، یک اکتیویتیه که ما دائما با اینسپکتور اداپت داریم پلنمون رو بروز میکنیم بر اساس واقعیت هایی که رو یاد میگیریم. یا مثلا اشاره کردن به دیولپرز، هنوز میگه اون مفهوم تیم رو دوست دارن که کنارش باشه، تیمی از دیولپرها. جالب اینجا این وسط کلمه سلف اورگانایزیشن رو به کار بردن. حالا میخوام ازشون بپرسم چرا این مثلا چرا سلف منیجمنت استفاده نکردن. این رو میگن یک تصویر کلی و معنیدار و عمیق‌تر از چارچوب اسکرام هست. Gunther, one question. Why did you use
Mhm.
self-organization phrase here and you didn't use self-management?
Yeah, another silly change of the latest Scrum Guide. It's been self-organization for as long as we know. Self-organization is a sort of a container term.
Yeah,
But for me, I keep using self-organization maybe because it goes back to the roots of Scrum. 1986, that paper, the new product
new
development
product.
game,
Yeah.
that's where we got the name Scrum from. That new product development game is all about self-organization. What makes certain organizations more successful in developing, creating, evolving, sustaining new products that did not exist before. Uh, it's all about self-organization. So Ken and Jeff added empiricism to that, but they still use the term Scrum from that paper, 1986, to as a name for their framework. So it's only in the most recent Scrum Guide, the 2020 version, that they replaced self-organization with self-management. And I also have in my book a Scrum glossary, so a sort of a terminology list of Scrum, in which I explain self-management as the minimal, the base level expression of self-organization. But it doesn't necessarily stop at only being self-managing. That's why I'm not a fan of that change in the Scrum Guide.
Oh,
It makes it, in that sense, more explicit. Self-management is more explicit than self-organization, but self-organization for me is not necessarily limited to self-management. So I will just keep using. I'm old, I'm old-fashioned.
that's
I'm
okay.
maybe more conservative than I like to believe for myself, but I truly believe in self-organization as the overarching management principle within which you can self-manage, within which you can self-design, you can self-direct, you can self-steer, and so on. All expressions of self-organization. And Scrum is not just about self-management. Self-management is the start, but it doesn't have to stop there.
Okay. So let me translate it and then we will go for Q&A. اه، سوال پرسیدم که چرا از اصطلاح سلف اورگانایزیشن استفاده کردین، در صورتی که توی گاید آخر ما سلف منیجمنت دارم که ایشون میگه من هنوز چیزم میخوام پایبند باشم به اون روت این عبارت که از اون مقاله معروف اومد The New Product Development Game 1986 با اون دوتا دانشمندی که نوشته شد آقای نوناکا و تاکاچی فکر کنم اگه اشتباه نکنم اسمشون. میگه و اعتقاد داره که سلف ارگانیزیشن یک مفهوم بزرگتری هست و فراگیرتری هست نسبت به سلف منیجمنت و به خاطر همین میخواد به این یعنی آزادی عمل رو همچنان میخواد بیشتر به تیم های اسکرام بده که بتونن از این مفهوم بیشتر استفاده بکنن. Areas of self-organization. Okay. Do you want to explain
Um,
this
just,
one?
just,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
just pulled this up to because as you were explaining, I hope
Yeah.
people will recognize it. Self-organization starts when you stop being manager-led, when there's not
Uh-huh.
one person that thinks he or she should control it all. That's where self-organization starts. It starts with self-managing teams, meaning teams that all manage their own work within sprints, within the boundaries of Scrum, against the expectations of Scrum. But you can expand that principle to self-designing team, meaning stop changing the team formation as an external person. Allow the team to design themselves, to decide what skills do we need, what skills do we not
Oh.
need, and so on. And it can go up to even the highest form. Let's say a small independent unit, startup, whatever, could be completely self-directing, not just managing themselves, but also deciding where are we heading for, what are we doing, what are we building, and so on. They can be completely self-directing. Just as a
Got it.
visualization of what I mean
Yeah.
with self-organization.
That was great. That was good. Thank you so much. خب بچه دیدین که نشون دادن ارتباط بین سلف ارگانیزیشن و سلف منیجمنت که مفهوم بزرگتری هست سلف ارگانیزیشن. حالا من خیلی نمیخوام توضیح بدم، تصویر رو شما دیدید. بریم سراغ پرسش و پاسخ چون میبینم بچه ها سوال دارن. من میخوام از دوست عزیزم امید شروع بکنم چون جداگونم بهم پیام داده بودن که سوال دارن. اولین سوال رو امید جان شما بفرمایید.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mehdi. I wish I understood a word of any word of what you say, but I don't. I'm going
No,
to
no, no.
assume that Persian is a really difficult language for people like me, no?
Yeah, yeah, I have heard that it is a difficult language. Okay, so we want to have our first, participant and guest to ask their question. Omid is one of my friends, and he will start. Omid.
Hello, nice to see you, Gunther. I like it so much. I follow you on your works actually.
Okay,
But
thank you.
because of the regulation of the meeting, I asked my question in Persian. Mehdi translated to
That would be
you.
great.
Thank you. مهدی جان، دو تا سوال دارم تو چتم نوشتم. یکی اینه که اه، به نظرشون آینده اسکرام چطوریه با توجه به اینکه هوش مصنوعی اومده به بازی تیم، یعنی به
Uh-huh.
شده یه آدمی که دیولوپ میکنه و یه توانایی نامحدودی داره و خیلی از کارهایی که ما قبلا میکردیم تا تیم رو انگیج کنیم و قوی کنیم شاید دیگه ضرورت نداشته باشه. دومیش هم اینه که ما یه تجربه ناموفقی داشتیم تو دهه قبل توی اسکیل کردن اسکرام تو مارکت، یعنی با متدهای مختلف نکسوس، اسکرام ات اسکیل و حتی سیف که مثلا میگه تیم اسکرام خودش هم داره و اسکرام مستر خودش رو داره. میخوام ببینم شانسی هست اسکرام رو، این اسکرام واقعی که ما دنبال میکنیم و توی یه تیم بزرگتر از 10 نفر به نتیجه رسون. این
Okay.
دو تا سواله.
So, Gunther,
اونجا برات تو چت هم نوشتم
okay, okay. Now, there were two questions. The first one is, how do you see the future of Scrum because of the emergence of AI that we see that AI is revolutionizing our way of working. So how do you see the future?
Well, yeah, I think AI probably is going to revolutionize our work. It might be a big new disruption again, almost at the level of what the internet was. But at currently, um, we're not really sure what AI does because it's neural networks. We feed them with insights and lessons and so on, and it translates them into patterns. But AI in itself still doesn't have human intelligence,
Yeah.
interpretation. It just it can replicate almost the patterns you feed into it. You say that this is right, this, whatever, and then with some probability a result comes out of it. It's currently very focused on language engines and machines almost, very helpful. Um, I haven't run into a situation that my Scrum or working with a team would work better with AI than it does without AI. You can use it for things, so it's probably going to revolutionize our work, but it's still certainly not up to the point where it can replace human creativity and intelligence, interpretation, vagueness and ambiguity are almost essential components almost of our work. Different roads we can take, and those things are not that easily translated into patterns that a neural network can recognize. So I think for the time being we're safe as human beings, because it doesn't really replace, it supports us, it helps us with things, we can look up things. A big danger for me with AI, honestly, is biases, because we feed those neural networks with insights and lessons as human beings, but as human beings, we are also biased. So those neural networks probably also at some point of time are going to replicate or reproduce our biases, which may have a lot to do with, you know, think about topics like gender, racism, color of
Mm,
skin, things on. So, what types of people are feeding those things with what types of information? Because currently, what you put into it will come out of it too in a more intelligent way. So it's not going to replace us for the time being. It's important. I'm currently with the actual practical use of AI. I've been attending some seminars. People say we should go you AI and whatever, and then it's all about supporting people in text, in conversations, even where it's all very much about language, a little bit about pictures. So I'm not sure. It's going to revolutionize the world, but I would be careful in too high up expectations, because we
mhm,
had several evolutions in history of humankind that thought that we said it's going to revolutionize the world, in the sense it's going to liberate people from manual work, repetitive work, stupid work, and so on. And every time again, that is not really true.
mm.
So I think like a long time ago, steam machines and industrialization and now the knowledge, the age of knowledge and information, there's always this hidden expectation that it's going to liberate people so that we're now finally going to do whatever we want to do and not the boring, repetitive, whatever task, but it still seems we end up thinking so. So is it going to revolutionize the world? Absolutely. In what sense? I'm not really sure, but given the current state, it's certainly not going to replace intelligence, creativity, dealing with ambiguity, interpreting things, bringing conflicting ideas together around the table, that human interaction. I think it's not going to replace that, at least not in the short term.
So still you see Scrum relevant. Hmm?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's this, I don't know if that was part of your question, Omid. So thanks for the question, by the way, Omid. Um, You've got all this social networking, clickbaiting, whatever, provocative statements and so on. Agile is dead and Scrum is dead and Scrum is not agile and so on. Don't be led astray by that social media behavior. It's often clickbait. It's often because um, social media platforms like negativity. They feed on negativity, and negativity gets amplified beyond reasonable things. If I talk to people in my classes and out there in organizations, most of them are not on LinkedIn, not bothered by LinkedIn, and so on, and they need Scrum. So for me, there is a future of Scrum. Um, just lots of people think they want to almost like this nasty thing in human beings when it comes down sometimes to money. A lot of people want to almost like reinvent Scrum, do something that actually is Scrum, but not call it Scrum, and then build their own licensing or certification or training model around it. And it's all driven by greed. And that's something it makes me so sad. We got a number of people driven by greed and continuously distracting, I think, engaged practitioners like ourselves, creating confusion rather than just moving forward with Scrum. But I strongly believe in the future of Scrum because Scrum is just a combination of two feedback loops with some domains of accountability that need to be addressed. You can't make it more simple like that. You can make it more complicated, but that's not really helpful. So
Yeah.
yes, I believe in the future of Scrum. Yeah.
Okay, Gunther, thank you very much. Let me translate it. اشاره کردن که در مورد AI قطعا داره تغییر میده شیوه و پارادایم های کاری ما رو، اما معنیش این نیست که جای اسکرام رو میگیره یا اینکه اسکرام از بین میره یا اینکه نمیدونم خطر آنچنانی داره، چون اسکرام در مورد اون فونداسیون ها داره صحبت میکنه. ما از این نوع انقلابا زیاد داشتیم، انقلاب صنعتی نمیدونم بعدش اومده جلوتر، اینترنت اومد نمیدونم چه، ولی همچنان میبینیم که اون هوش انسانی نیازه و خود هوش به اصطلاح مصنوعی، اسمش هم هوش مصنوعی دیگه، داره یاد میگیره از پترن هایی که ما قبلا خودمون یه روزی جنریت کردیم و اون داره رپلیکیتش میکنه، داره تکرارش میکنه. فقط اینکه توی خیلی سریعتر توی حجم انبوهی از داده داره آموزش میبینه و انگار راحت‌تر چیز میکنه. برای کارهای تکراری انگار خیلی میتونه کمک بکنه، ولی هنوز اون هوش انسانی رو نداره و خیلی از ابعاد انسانی رو ما میتونیم نام ببریم که واقعا هوش مصنوعی هنوز سالیان سال واقعا کار داره. مثلا همدلی، اینو من دیگه خودم دارم میگم بچه‌ها، مگه هوش مصنوعی میتونه همدلی بکنه با انسان ها؟ اصلا بی‌معنیه و چیزای از این دست. یه مورد دیگه میگه که این شبکه‌های مجازی خیلی در مورد دوست دارن که در مورد ابعاد بد صحبت بکنن، این که مثلا اجایل مرده، اسکرام مرده، نمیدونم چه و چه و چه، ولی خیلی به اینها بها ندید، به اون واقعیت بریم نگاه بکنیم. مهم اینه که ما دائما خودمون ارتقا بدیم. من خودم اعتقادم به اینه که بله ای آی به عنوان یه واقعیت اومده، بهترین کار اینه که با اینسپکتور هدف واقعا خودمون رو هدف بکنیم باهاش، ببینید کجا میتونه کمکمون بکنه که بیاد در خدمت ما، نه اینکه ما اسیر او بشیم. این از این. بریم Gunther, I would appreciate it if you could answer a little bit shorter to manage time. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The probably we can go for, I don't know, two or three more questions. The next question is about scale frameworks, for example, Safe, Nexus, that, less, and these things. And usually they are not successful. Omid asked, is there any way that we use Scrum in a, I don't know, bigger size of teams, more than 20, sorry, 10 members, or it's better to say in a scale environment just purely by Scrum?
Well, it depends on what you call a scaled environment.
Huh?
So in my pocket guide, I described sort of a couple of patterns to scale up Scrum. The most simple situation is obviously single team Scrum. One product being managed by one team. It's all simple. You got one product on, one product back, you got one of everything. What the problem with scale is that too many organizations see scale as a sign of status and importance. We are big, we are huge, we are large
Oh,
organizations, whatever. And that might be true, but scale is in the amount of products that you have, not in the amount of teams that you have. To give a very
oh,
simple example, you can have an organization with 100 products and 100 teams where every team manages one product. That is a simple situation that is 100 times single team Scrum. You don't need anything additionally on top of that. In most organizations that I've worked with, and some of them were really big, you don't need more than maybe a few teams to manage and evolve a product. And even then, you can stick to what I call multi-team Scrum. So one product being managed by two, three, maybe four teams. And then
okay.
still, you don't need any additional framework for that. I've got a workshop around that, by the way. So people go into scaling frameworks for a size of work where that framework is not designed for. It's because managers like to express, I am very important because we have many teams. No, it's how many products you have. And then if you go back to the simplicity of Scrum, a product and one or multiple dedicated teams working on that product without having your team spread across several products at the same time, you would simplify and become a lot more effective without anything additional.
So you mean that you don't believe in scale frameworks?
Yes, but only if you really need them. Long time ago in SAFe, there was like in the small letters of the contract, let's say, only use SAFe when you have more than 50 people working on the same product. So
Oh,
the scaling decision should start with product, not with number of teams.
oh.
Product and how many teams you need to maintain a certain product. So frameworks, scaling frameworks, absolutely. If you are really a huge organization, well, let's say you have one product that needs to be managed by 10, 15, 20 teams at the same time. I don't know a lot of organizations that are in that situation.
Oh, So let me translate it در مورد این قضیه که از فریمورک های اسکیل شده استفاده بکنیم. صحبتش اینه که ما باید بچسبیم به اون سیمپلیسیتی، یعنی اینکه در اصل تمرکزمون باید روی اون پروداکت، میزان پروداکتی که تولید میکنیم باید باشه. حالا خیلی از سازمان ها با استفاده از این فریمورک های اسکیل میخوان نشون بدن ما بزرگیم، ما با اهمیتیم، نمیدونم ما فلان هستیم یا همچین چیزهایی، ولی در نهایت میگن که ما باید اون جایی که واقعا نیاز هست بریم. حتی زمانی که چند تا تیم به صورت همزمان دارن روی یه پروداکت کار میکنن، همچنان اونها اسکرام هستن. خب و یه پروداکت اونر دارن، یه پروداکت دارن و روی این دارن کار میکنن. و یه چیزی هم گفتم، امیدوارم درست تو ذهنم مونده باشه، در مورد سیف مثلا میگفت اگر بیشتر از 50 تا تیم دارید که میخوان پس روی پروداکت ها کار بکنن، اون وقت مثلا میتونید به سمت سیف و اینها. من چیزی که واقعا از جواب ایشون میخونم اینه که خیلی اعتقادی به این ندارن، واقعیتش حداقل من این رو خوندم، ولی حالا این پاسخشون بوده دیگه. اوکی. Gunther, you want to share something here? Yeah, go ahead.
Just as
Yeah,
to support your story, this is
yeah.
a picture from my book again. It's called Multi-Team Scrum. One product having one product backlog, multiple teams working on it, meaning there's one product owner, several teams, maybe one, maybe several Scrum Masters, and the ambition is to create integrated increments, integrated releasable versions of their product. I've done this in large organizations with up to 4 teams
Uh-huh.
fluently, seamlessly, without adding anything, no additional roles, no additional artifacts, no additional meetings, and so on.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
think
Lovely.
about it.
Yeah, thank you. Gunther, I see that there are three people want to ask their question. Is it okay we extend our session for 10 minutes?
تشکر کنید ازشون
Yeah.
فقط.
Yeah, okay. And Omid, yeah, say thank you so much for your
Thank
explanation,
you.
Gunther.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's continue with Negin. Negin, you go ahead. Next one.
First of all, greetings to both of you, and thank you for your great presentation. And also, I'd like to thank Mr. Hosseini for his wonderful translation at the same time.
My pleasure.
Due to our class circumstances, I'd like to ask my question in Persian, so our fellows would follow as well. سوال من اینه که با توجه به اهمیت ارزش‌های اسکرام و این چیزهایی که ایشون داشتن میگفتن و اینکه رول اسکرام مستر یه رول اینفلوئنشاله، ما چجوری میتونیم این اثرها رو به بهترین روش وارد تیم کنیم؟ آیا راهی وجود داره، پرکتیسی وجود داره یا روش خاصی براش هست؟
سوال خیلی چالشی و هوشمندانه ایه. بپرسم. Okay. There is a challenging question here, Gunther. Negin asked
Mhm.
that as we know that promoting Scrum values is challenging, and of course, the Scrum Master has an influential role. What are some practical ways that we can use to promote these values into the team?
Yeah. For me as a Scrum Master, the retrospective. So once you're doing Scrum or working with Scrum, every retrospective again. For me, most retrospectives are a little bit boring because they're always repetitive. It seems that people always talk about the same, sort of like improvements, sort of like the idea of a daily scrum, but at the retrospective, what have we done well, what have we not done well, what are problems and so on. That's a little bit boring. So I think a retrospective should not just be about results, should not just be about the work, but also about relationships and collaboration. So as a Scrum Master showed the courage to drive the conversation at the retrospective towards behavior. What
Mm.
have we done? How have we worked together? I don't know. Why was the same person always late? I don't know. Things like that. How do other people feel about that? So facilitate. Don't start to control it. Try to bring in observations so that people start talking with each other, and not just about the process, not just about the technique or the technology or the development practices and so on, but also about the people, the human aspect. So that is important. Um, Now, often when before you start with Scrum, you have some sort of team formation, team setup phases, and so on. Also, in those phases, might be already important to bring up the idea of the Scrum values and help them think about what is often called a team agreement, a sort of a charter as a team agreement. How are we going to work together as a team? And I think the values are a really beautiful starting point to go into a team agreement. In that sense, work with the team to give meaning to those 5 words. What do we
Oh,
mean with commitment? What do we mean as a team with focus? And then, as a Scrum Master, be there to help facilitate that conversation in the sense of asking questions. Yeah, but what you explain as commitment, does that align with complexity and uncertainty? Does that align with self-organization? So those 3 things underlying Scrum. So during team formation, team agreement, at the retrospective, because a retrospective might also be a good point to look back at the team agreement. Are we still living up to our own agreement? Remember, a long time ago when we started, these were our dreams. This is what we wanted to do. Are we still doing that?
wonderful. I really loved your answer, Gunther. Thank you so much. گفتن که خب توی چیز اول قدم اول استفاده مؤثر از جلسات ریتروسپکتیو هست به جای اینکه فقط روی ریزالت ها تمرکز بکنیم. اه، خودمون به عنوان اسکرام مستر این جرأت، کورج و شهامت رو بیاریم وسط و مسیر صحبت رو عوض کنیم به سمت اون رفتارهایی که مبتنی بر ارزش‌های اسکرام هستن. بیایم باز در موردشون صحبت بکنیم. این خیلی مهمه. پس به عنوان کسی که نقش اینفلوئنشال دارید، به عنوان کسی که میتونید فسیلیتیت بکنید، این جرأت رو به خودتون بدید که این رو وارد صحبت ریترو بکنید و بر اساس اون تصمیماتی برای ایمپروومنت بگیرید. مورد دیگه که من خیلی دوست داشتم بحث تیم اگریمنت بوده که صحبت کردن. تیم اگریمنت بسیار مهمه. من جا داره همینجا از فرصت استفاده بکنم چون نگین عزیز و بعضی دیگه از بچهای خودمون الان توی یه دوره‌ای با ما دارن شرکت میکنن به نام ورد کلاس پروداکت دیولپمنت. اگه یادتون باشه ما گفتیم که شما حتما باید یک سند تیم اگریمنت داشته باشید که اون منتج بشه به نوع عملکرد شما، رفتارهایی که میخواید داشته باشید. و الان میبینیم که آی گونتر هم دارن به این اشاره میکنن این که چه کانتنتی تو اون سند تیم اگریمنت باشه این دست خودتونه و اون اسکرام مستری که به اندازه کافی شجاعت داره و میتونه درایو بکنه مسیر حرکت فکری و رفتاری تیم رو، میره اون رو میاره وسط و میگه بچه ما باید معانی این ارزش ها رو ترجمه کنیم و بیاریم داخل اون تیم اگریمنتمون. یعنی بهشون معنی بدیم. آقا اگه میگیم فرض کامیتمنت معنیش چیه؟ معنیش اینه که فرض اگر دیلیمون 9 همه باید رأس 9 تو دیلیمون باشیم. خب اگر معنیش اینه که مثلا ددیکیشنمون رو باید نشون بدیم، واقعا باید به این شکل نشون بدیم. و من خیلی دوست داشتم واقعا پاسخشون رو در این خصوص. مرسی نگین جان بابت سوال خوبتون. اجازه بدید بریم سراغ سوال آخر که شهاب عزیز میخوام بپرسن. The last question, Gunther. شهاب please.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Gunther. Thanks a lot. It is my pleasure to meet you, and it's a very nice and insightful presentation. I really appreciate for that one.
Thank you.
Based on your experience, what is the key differentiator between a good Scrum team and a truly high-performing one? And what steps can teams perhaps take to bridge the gap, please?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me start with, I don't know, maybe it's terminology, but I think it's important. Not too long ago, few years ago, it was all about what you also said, Shahab. So thanks for your question. High performance teams. And what I felt in those discussions is what people mean with performance is productivity in the industrial sense, meaning volume, more work delivered faster, and so on. And I felt like, no, 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 this is not the way to go. Scrum is not about an industrial view on our work. In my book, I described it as moving from the industrial paradigm to the agile paradigm. So the agile paradigm is very different. It's not about volume in Scrum, it's about value. So the outcome of Scrum should be value delivered, not just more, not just volume. And in that sense, I thought about high performance, Shahab. For me, a Scrum team that is high performant, I like to focus on highly collaborative teams.
Mhm.
Because if teams really collaborate with each other a lot, performance will be high. But performance will then be almost like a side effect. So it's about collaboration. So I like to focus on highly collaborative teams instead of high performance teams. So highly collaborative teams is for me the way to go. Because if people collaborate, work together, work hard, dedicate, and so on, and then you end up again with the topic of today, the Scrum values. People showing commitment. So commitment, the Scrum values, commitment, focus, more openness, respect, courage should go up as a result of doing Scrum. So in that sense, for me, the Scrum values are more like a result. I like to see it as a compass or a barometer. So if I would look at the performance of a team, I would look at the level of collaboration within the team, and I would use the Scrum values for that. How is the commitment in this team? How is the dedication? How is their collaboration? How do they work with each other? What is the honesty, the openness within the teams? Are they able to work things through? I've been showing a couple of pictures, and I really want to show one more
Yeah,
picture to
why not?
illustrate one of the aspects that I mean. If I hope you're okay with that, by the way. So for me, Shahab, it's all about highly collaborative teams, which is not the same as what most people mean with high performance teams. High performance teams are teams, you know that term, industrial term, utilization, meaning busy every minute of every day, looking busy,
Mhm.
doing overtime and so on. That is not the same. That is about, yeah, just looking busy. For me, it's about collaboration. And one of the signs of high levels of collaboration is the courage, the openness, the willingness almost to enter conflict as a team, within a team, but at a level of conflict that is still, it's constructive, it is productive. And this is a picture that says several levels of conflict. The preferred level of conflict is productive dissent. Dissent meaning people not necessarily agreeing with each other, but figuring it out in a constructive, in a productive way. It's not
Mhm.
about ruining each other. It's not destroying the other. It's not about whatever. No, it's productive dissent. Now, the problem with highly collaborative teams is that most teams nowadays that I see are in the bottom level of conflict, meaning absence of conflict. And I've called that complete harmony. People not speaking up, people not challenging each other, people not provoking each other, people hiding all the time. So in that sense, that is a low collaborative team which shows in the sense that in the fact that they don't enter conflict. And that is
Mm.
that is that is that is lethal, that is killing people. Because fighting complexity, tackling complexity means everybody has ideas. You want to get them all on the table so that as a team, you can figure out what are we going to do with it? Which idea is the best? If people hold back ideas, you might be missing on a potential best idea. So highly collaborative teams instead of high performing teams, which shows in enacting what I call enacting the Scrum values, living the values.
Wonderful. Gunther, thank you so much.
So that's really
شا...
appreciate.
yeah. شب عزیز پرسیدن در مورد یه تیم های پرفورمنس که چجوری تعریفش میکنن که واقعا چی میگن اپروچ جالبی داشتن، اینکه بیشتر در سطح کلابریشن اونها میبینن اینکه چگونه خودشون رو نشون میدن، در خدمت تیم هستن تا بتونن ارزش خلق بکنن. مقایسه کردن با رویکردهای ترادیشنال که اون موقع پرفورمنس رو در میزان حجم بیشتری از کار که تولید میشد یا اینکه بیشتر مشغول باشن، همه بیزی باشن، در این میدیدن. ولی در دنیای کامپلکس این پارادایم متفاوته. هرچی ما بیشتر کلابریت بکنیم اون وقت به سمت های پرفورمنس شدن نزدیک میشیم. مورد بعدی هم که اشاره کردن در مورد سطوح کانفلیکت بود. من خیلی اینو دوست داشتم. اینکه تو تیمی هیچ کانفلیکتی وجود نداشته باشه معنیش این نیست که اینا های پرفورمنس بودن، بلکه ما سطحی از کانفلیکت رو باید داشته باشیم. من این اصطلاح رو نشده بودم، productive dissent، ولی چیزی که من خودم استفاده میکردم constructive conflict بوده. یعنی ما همیشه باید سطحی از کانفلیکت رو باید داشته باشیم، چون اون درایوینگ فورس تیمه که اونها رو میبره به سمت جاهایی که نادانستگی وجود داره و نادانستگی رو تبدیل میکنن به دانستگی و همون جایی هست که موفقیت ها رو برای تیم رقم میزنه. ولی خب خیلی جالب بود این اصطلاح هم که استفاده کرد. پس اگه میخواید یک تیم موفق رو واقعا ببینید، های پرفورمنس رو ببینید تو چه سطحی اونا کلابریت میکنن و آیا دارن ارزش خلق میکنن و اینکه آیا توی ارتباطات روزانهشون سطحی از کانفلیکت سازنده رو دارن یا خیر. That was really, really great. Gunther.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mehdi, for the invitation. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's good to see you. Thank you for the questions. Thank you
yeah,
for the
sure.
translation, Mehdi.
Yeah, my pleasure. You are one of the best friends that I have in the Agile and Scrum world. I appreciate it that you gave your time to us. And I think we can close the session, guys, right? Okay. So, Gunther, again, thank you so much for coming here. I think I will see you in Delft because of our
Yeah,
F2F. Yeah, I
in
have seen
March.
your name on that,
Yeah.
event. So, thank you very much. Have a nice day, guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks,
Thank
Gunther.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mehdi.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks
بچه
a
ما
lot.
این رکورد ضبط شده رو هم منتشر خواهیم کرد توی چیزا، دیگه نگران نباشید، به دستتون خواهد رسید. ممنون از همگی، مراقب خودتون باشید، به امید دیدار.
Okay, wonderful. So,
خداحافظ
Mehdi,
شما.